Hey, how you doing? Sean Tech over here. So we're starting out these videos, and I was thinking to myself, what's the first actual thing I want to do after I do an introduction? The terrible introduction that I had earlier, that was probably really bad, I'm guessing. But I decided to kind of maybe show some of the tools that I've got and some of the things that I've got. For instance, one of the tools that we're going to be doing a lot of some kind of videos with is my microscope that's right here. This is a Nikon 745T microscope, kind of an older model one, and then I've got an infinity-based camera on here. Quite a nice camera, but they are Nikon products in terms of what they are. I mean, they're a little bit more on the pricier side of things in terms of what they are. But some of the things that I'm going to start with what my strongest suit is, and something that actually looks kind of neat underneath the microscope, and that's soldering. Soldering is a process by which metal is melted at kind of a low temperature using, and I mean low temperature, like you still wouldn't want to touch it when it's melted, but it's up in like the couple hundreds of degrees C, or maybe like in terms of Fahrenheit terms, like 400s to 500s degrees Fahrenheit, along those ways. Solder actually comes on these things called spools. I'm holding, I don't know if you can see this here, I am holding solder wire. This little thing that actually comes off of a spool of wire here. You see that? That is solder wire, is what it is. Now, this is made of a combination of metals, what we would call lead and tin. Now, if we were to look at this up close and underneath the microscope here, which you should be able to kind of see right about now. See that guy underneath the microscope? That right there is solder wire. And to put this into a little bit of some scale perspective, I'm going to use my straight edge ruler here, just kind of put a little scale here. Probably be doing that throughout a majority of these for videos right there. We can really see that this wire is not very big. Maybe a millimeter diameter. Let's see here. Let's try to get a little bit close to straighten the thing out. Oh, excuse me. All right, excuse me about that. There we go. Yeah, about half a millimeter, about maybe 1 millimeter, half a millimeter, 3/4 of a millimeter, plus or minus. Let's look at it in inches too, because God bless America, we have to have inches on the bottom of this too. Let's see. It looks like well, it's about 1/64 of an inch, maybe 1/32. It's definitely less than a 32nd, somewhere between, oh, maybe it is. It's about a 32nd of an inch, 1/32 of an inch, which is 0.74794 millimeters. Thank you, Imperial system. Well, anyway, so all right, so solder. Solder is a metal that can be melted at somewhat low temperatures. And what do we use to melt that with? We use a tool called a soldering iron. This pen-looking thing, which you just heard the beeps, indicating that the tip of this guy is very, very hot. As in, you don't want to touch the tip. Those of you who have never soldered anything before, don't grab the metal piece. Grab the little plastic piece. It'll make things much more less owier in terms of what it is. But so anyway, if we take our solder wire and look at the tip of the soldering iron underneath the microscope, you'll notice that there is a kind of a wedge shape. I'm using my smaller soldering iron right now, one of the smaller ones. But if I touch the tip of this to the wire right here, that, whoa, two things are kind of starting to happen. One, the solder wire has melted on the tip of the iron, and some smoky looking stuff has kind of been released. That smoky looking stuff, that's fluxing agent is what we call that. F-L-U-X, fluxing agent. Fluxing agent has a specific purpose, which I'll kind of go over maybe in a later video with this right there. Right now, what I want to do is just kind of showcase, test out the software and the hardware and the stuff that I'm using with it, because I don't even know how well this kind of works with it. I'm trying to figure this out as I go. So, using the soldering iron, and I should be able to zoom in a little bit closer, focus in on that wire. Check that. I'm kind of looking at this through the screen as it is right now. All right, so I'm looking at this down through the screen. If I touch the tip of this, check that out. It just turns into, T1000 liquid metal is what it does. See that liquid metal right there? Holy cow. Look at that. You see that? And it just kind of droops itself all the way down. Very satisfying in some ways. It's one of those things you kind of look at. So, the reason that it's doing this, it's metal is just like, well, this material happens to be just like water. You know, you take an ice cube and you start to get it hot. Well, it starts to turn into liquid water, and then eventually starts to turn into steam. This metal is turning into liquid water and releasing the smoke is not necessarily steam, but it's in fact, it's not steam at all, but there is a little bit of some steam that's actually being generated. That's why I've got behind here, I actually have a fan that is sucking in some of the fumes that are being coming from this on here. Soldering does produce some fumes, is what it does. But yeah, ultimately, and let's see how far can we look? How far can we look? Whoa! Look how close that is. All right. So now, going a little bit closer, we'll apply the iron to it once again. Here comes my iron. Here comes my iron, and I'm gonna kind of come up underneath it here, and look at that. You see that? Melts right onto the tip of the soldering iron, and now the soldering iron has got liquid metal on its tip. We use that liquid metal for all kinds of things, really, is what we use it for. Namely, in the electronics world is what we use it to basically electrically and physically connect circuit elements to each other on a circuit board. So we use this material just for doing that. But ultimately, we'll be showcasing Will. I've been so used to saying Will. It's more like I'll be showcasing over to you how this is kind of done through the use of a microscope and a camera that is broadcasting what I'm doing to it on there. So that's how solder works. That's some of the tools that will be, Will. Why you keep saying Will? I've been saying Will for a little while, but it's actually going to be an owl for at least a little while, so to speak. But in many ways, it is kind of a Will. We're all together in this, right? That's the way this goes. We're all one cohesive piece in some way, shape, and form. So, anyway, that's going to be our lesson for today. So, thanks very much. We'll see you later.